Happy Wednesday to all. Welcome into the PHLY Phillies podcast. Jamie Lynch, Renee Washington, Tyler Zulli here with you. This weather's pretty nice out today. I like this weather a lot. I still wore the shorts and flops to school in the morning with a little hoodie on, but I went with the pants today because I'm a professional. But I do like this where you can crack the window a little bit and get that cool breeze coming in and the sun shining. It's a good fall golf day, but just a nice day outside in general.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be a little bit warmer when I first walked out the front door, so I was a little underprepared. I'm a big scarf and hat person because I don't like air on my neck and on my ears.
Wait, what? You don't like air?
No, I don't want the air on my neck.
Are you a windows down person?
I didn't have my windows down today. Apparently you did. I didn't.
But on a 75-degree sunny day, you don't have the windows down?
Yeah, but that's different. It's not
the
cold
air
there. I wouldn't mind. This is a good crack your window at night.
Deep breath.
It's a great crack your window at night weather. I love being cold when I sleep. But when I walked out the door, I was kind of but I didn't want. I was too lazy to go back in the house and grab a scarf, and I was I'll just tough it out.
A nice big deep hit of some cool fall air.
So I will say, for it being November, it could be way worse. And I was talking about this before the show with our folks around the office. It could be worse. We could have snow. We could have all types of things. But at least it's sunny out, and it's like a brisk day.
Yeah.
There's a little chill. Makes you want some hot chocolate.
My cousin just moved to Chicago, and he ate shit on his stairs walking out of the building his second week there and hurt his back because of black ice. So yeah, it could be a lot worse.
Oh, my front stairs had some dampness to it. I still don't know what it was from, and I definitely was like, oh no.
Somebody peed on you all over your steps.
Basically.
Yeah.
Somebody couldn't make it.
Yeah. So happy Wednesday to all out there. A lot to get into today, actually, as there's a lot of rumors coming out of the GM meetings out in Arizona. We're a little less than a month away from the owners' meetings when things will really heat up. But I want to start today with what a old friend of mine, Howard Eskin, had to say. It's just as genius what I'm hearing. But he did have two interesting nuggets regarding the Phillies yesterday, and we all know Howard is connected. I don't know his actual batting average when it comes to these stories, but he's never afraid to put his neck on the line and say it. So yesterday on WIP, he had two interesting things to say. One we'll start with, and then we'll get to the second one. Howard Eskin is hearing that the Phillies are, in fact, going to move on from re-signing Aaron Nola. He is, there was a Sports Illustrated national reporter, I forget his name offhand, we can dig that up, who kind of insinuated the same thing yesterday, that the Rangers and Cardinals are the teams that are going to be hot after Nola, and the Phillies may have kind of conceded that they're not going to match whatever the open market is going to dictate. So it appears now locally and both nationally, two people in the game have said the Phillies are going to turn past Aaron Nola and move on. And I hope it's not a mistake. We've had this conversation before. The grass is not always greener, Renee. There was a consistency with Nola, frustrating at times, no doubt. But he has been a major part of the turnaround here in Philadelphia. And I thought he pitched well enough in big games over the last 2 years that they would have considered keeping him.
Yeah. It is interesting as I was hearing and reading about Howard Eskin's reports and the different reports that have come out since then. And as we're unpacking and digesting all the information, it definitely makes me go back to, back in the spring when there were conversations floating around about, a 9-figure number that they were considering for Aaron Nola to, as the Phillies were having those conversations with Aaron Nola and his team. And then that number, we kind of through spring training, through the season, forgot about it. And then here we are again. And now after having a spring where other teams weren't really interested in Aaron Nola, his stock has gone up. And there are a lot of teams that are very interested in Aaron Nola and honestly interested in providing him with numbers that are bigger than what the Phillies can provide. So that's where, as Howard
the Phillies
was saying,
can provide whatever they'd like.
Yeah, technically, but what they're looking to provide
himself, I'm sure, in his market.
So that part of it, now hearing that it's a much more competitive, discussion around Aaron Nola, more teams are into the conversation. When Howard Eskin was mentioning it, that the Phillies are probably not going to re-sign Nola, then I was like, that actually kind of makes sense because they don't want to make it a bidding war, especially since there's, as we talked about, other areas that the Phillies are looking to address in terms of bullpen arms, in terms of even, we'll get into Rhys Hoskins in a moment, but in general, the team's not willing to throw everything in the kitchen sink to keep Aaron Nola because there are other options out there. So I know, Kim, welcome. First time chatting with us live. Love that you are someone that listens to our podcast, Kim.
Shout out, Kim.
Nice to have you here live with us on the show. It's a pleasure. Will, welcome back. We've seen you as well many times. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button, joining in the conversation, jump in the chat just like Kim and Will have done to join the conversation today. There's a lot of rumors swirling. There's a lot of conversation going around of what's next, what's going to happen, all these, possible outcomes. But for Aaron Nola specifically, I don't think I'm surprised. As you mentioned, I'm a little on the fence, disappointed because I'm not a grass is greener on the other side type of a person. I'm always grass is greener where you water it person. But financially, why get into a bidding war if you have other options? So
yeah, as we read yesterday,
it
appears there's no shortage of suitors for Aaron Nola, and that just means two teams are going to get in a bidding war.
Yeah.
Aaron Nola, very possibly, we've seen him the last time in a Phillies uniform. Shout out MBD in the chat. Don't worry, we're going to talk Josh Hader today, all right? So we'll get you real irrational. I don't really understand your Josh Hader hate, but we'll get into that because we are going to talk about some bullpen arms today.
Yes.
But the other probably more interesting nugget that Howard spilled on WIP yesterday was that, according to him and someone he's talked to, Bryce Harper wants to play first base. And... Oh, Jamie from Derek Bodner. What's the best flavor of Sour Patch Kids? I think that supersedes the Bryce Harper conversation.
Clearly more important.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the watermelon. I think the watermelon is king. Strawberry makes a good push. But yes, Bryce Harper. And this, Renee, comes as no real surprise to me. Tyler Zulli hitting the wrong button in
Tyler's
there.
Just DJing back there. Look, we got Sour Patch Kids and DJ Tyler back there. So we are going off the rails.
Bryce wanting to play first base comes as no real shock to me. There is that emotional intelligence thing where him saying, I want to play first base, he knows what that means for Rhys Hoskins.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you're as natural a baseball player as Bryce Harper is, and you go from standing around right field, being involved on, let's say 9% of all plays at most, 7-8%, and then moving into first base where you're involved in like 65, I'm just making up these percentages just to paint the picture, 65-70% of all plays.
Huge difference.
That's probably pretty appealing. And especially when you go out there and you're just a freaking natural at it.
Mm-hmm.
So just being the baseball player he is and the addict he is to baseball, I went, this makes a lot of sense. So it's very possible that the two longest tenured Phillies, Aaron Nola and Rhys Hoskins, both could be going elsewhere. And that is a major shakeup of the locker room if Howard Eskin is right. And let's not get ahead of ourselves here, Howard. You got to be right here. Anybody can say stuff. But I do believe both have kind of common sense validity to them.
Mm-hmm.
So Rhys Hoskins could be farewell. According to a lot of the top 50 free agent lists, depending on who's writing it, Rhys Hoskins mostly falls in between like the 23rd and 30th top free agents on the market.
Yeah.
We'll speculate some teams that could make sense for him. But the Phillies might not be one of them, Renee. How does that make you feel inside?
Well,
because he's been a fan favorite. He's kind of been here through it all. He's been
first
pretty good player.
Looking at 7 years.
32 home run guys don't grow on trees.
No. And of course, we were all devastated when Rhys Hoskins tore his ACL and you knew you weren't going to have him for the season. It was devastating because, Rhys Hoskins is not only a good clubhouse guy, good smashing homers, but he's a fan favorite. People love Rhys Hoskins. And now hearing this, that
his wife was buying people beers.
Right. And now hearing that he may not be returning, just to clarify, Howard Haskins said he did say from his understanding that Bryce Harper, Bryce wants to play first base from what I understand. He's going to play first base, and that eliminates Hoskins. That was exactly what
If he wants to play first, so yes, Rhys is done here.
Was not clearly stating that came from Bryce's mouth specifically, but from his understanding, which, as we know exactly, like you said, that means he wants to play first. If he wants to play first, he's got first.
And then Howard's wording it so he gives himself a little out, too. Well, I was just told.
Right, he's saying from what I understand versus from what I know, which is a huge difference. But you do have to tiptoe it because you don't want to look like you are putting out false information. But then on the other side of it, as we have talked about, Rhys Hoskins, not the best first baseman. And for Bryce Harper to come in, he did a fantastic job. Where you're going to bring back Rhys off of an ACL and move Bryce, who has been lights out at first base in his short time since learning it. Or I know we were even talking before the show, does that make him a DH? And then what happens with Kyle Schwarber? It's just too many question marks. And you can't fit all these pieces. It's kind of like you're putting a puzzle together, but the pieces aren't fitting. Something's got to go. So I don't love it, but I think from what I've been consistently saying, I do think there needs to be a change in the Phillies. Nothing drastic, but a change like not bringing back Rhys Hoskins and Aaron Nola. Those are two major changes of guys that are Phillies through and through and are, just not the best fit financially, maybe for Aaron Nola. I know we talked yesterday about various other starting pitchers. We will get into the bullpen arms today, whether it's a Blake Snell or Yamamoto, whoever it is, or other bullpen arms. There's other options out there for both of these guys in terms of teams, but even for the Phillies, that you don't have to force it. You don't have to force trying to keep Rhys Hoskins. And then now you're trying to figure out, well, what about Bryce going back into right field? Where does Nick go? Where, it makes it actually more complicated.
Yeah, so Kim says in the chat, why not give Hoskins that 1 year prove-it deal?
Because where does he go?
Well, yeah, there's that.
That's a tough one.
He could be your DH, but that means more Schwarber in the field. And I think we've all had our fill of Kyle Schwarber playing defense for the Phillies. He can probably do better than a 1 year prove-it deal at this point.
And that's the other thing.
Baseball trade rumors had him as a 2 year, I think, $36 million deal or something like that.
Bingo. And that's what Dave is saying in the chat. Hoskins isn't going to take a 1 year deal. Absolutely not. I mean, right now for Rhys, you're talking that 2030 mark. I think I last saw him at 26 that he was ranked across all free agents. Definitely looking at a 2 year, $36 million deal roughly. So to take a 1 year deal would truly be because he just wants to stay with the Phillies.
Yeah,
and I don't know if his love for the Phillies is going to outdo a 2 year deal of $36 million.
It's money.
Listen, we like the Phillies, but if someone was to offer you, hey, I'll give you a 2 year deal to be a fan of somewhere else versus 1 year deal staying with the Phillies, and you were offering $36 million. Yeah, he's got some other teams like the Twins, like the Angels, different teams that have been predicted to possibly be interested in him. So according to trade rumors, I think that those deals maybe outweigh a 1 year deal in Philly, even though that might be heartbreaking, Kim, to your point of like, can we make it work? I don't think
the only other option you really have for Rhys is we've tried him in the outfield. He's terrible. We've tried him in first base. He's below average. I like Rhys Hoskins, but it does appear as though that chapter has come to an end. And if we're being brutally frank, Rhys, if you're listening, cover your ears. I think it can be beneficial for the team, both defensively and kind of clears a logjam. Now that Bryce can play first and play it really well, you kind of have a logjam in the outfield, and you kind of had a logjam at that DH first base position. So now it takes some money off of the books, and it allows you to supplement, whether it's a better utility person, whether it's a better starting left fielder or center fielder. Like, Gurriel is a guy for the Diamondbacks we just saw who's a left fielder who's a free agent. Do you consider doing something like that? Do you shop Brandon Marsh? Do you shop Rojas?
Right.
Do you shop somebody like Castellanos now? Because, I love MLB Hot Stove. So I was reading all the rumors last night from the GM meetings. And while it really takes until the owners meetings the first week of December for things to start kind of getting in gear, the GM's meetings are where, the conversations start. And apparently the big rumor coming out of yesterday in Arizona is that teams now are coveting existing contracts, i.e. your Kyle Schwarber's, Nick Castellanos', Brandon Marsh's of the world, as opposed to the open market valuations and some of the numbers, because much like every sport, the contracts just go up year after year. Being an uncapped sport and kind of baseball having a little bit of a resurgence here, guys are going to make more and more and more money. Somebody like Nick Castellanos can be considered a bargain when you're looking at it. Basically, what does he have left there, Tyler? I think it's 2 years and 50, something like that. 2 years and 45.
Yeah, let me look it up for you.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere around there. So if you're looking at, Castellanos versus, let's say, Gurriel, do you really want to pay more money to Gurriel when you have a probably more consistent proven guy in Castellanos? So now I think it really, Bryce, if he has made his decision, I think it opens up the trade floodgates for the team a little bit. And I do think there's going to be a lot of change. If Nola and Rhys are the starting point, now I think there's going to be a little bit of a trickle down, and I wouldn't be surprised to see, one of these outfielders moved.
Yeah, I know Tyler just clarified in the chat for us, in our personal chat,
3 years,
you guys
60.
can't see.
Okay.
Yes, 3 years left, $6 million.
So that means Schwarber has 2 years, 40.
So the other thing that's being brought up in the chat, and Kim, back to your question about can a 1 year deal work? I think the other part of it is now you try to figure out how can you make this work. Which guys can you be able to sign for or trade for or whatever to keep as many of the favorites that you want to keep with the Phillies? It's hard because there is the emotional connection. We have all floated around Nick Castellanos, Brandon Marsh, Johan Rojas, different guys that are potentially, I'm trying to make it stick. Guys that are possible, options because their stock has gone up that you can use in a trade. I know in the chat, Dave Mopar, MBD, you guys are talking about trading Kyle Schwarber and having Rhys in that DH spot. These are tough conversations to have.
Why would you take Schwarber when you can just put him in the 4-hole and it would all make sense?
Listen, that's the thing. It's not Jenga. It's like Tetris. You're trying to move the pieces around to make it work, to figure out what makes most sense. I don't know about. It can't be Kyle and Rhys. And if I had to choose between the two, I'm going to go with Kyle, just also because of the simple fact that Rhys is coming off of an ACL, didn't play this past season. Kyle's Kyle. Move him. We don't want him as leadoff. We've talked about having him in the 4 spot. Think that's the move. But either way, I know it's back and forth in the chat, some mixed feelings. So this is the tough part because this is where as we know, you're not bringing back the same guys next year you've had this year, and you shouldn't. There should be some changes. But it's that, back to my dating analogies I've used every single day, why not keep it consistent? It's do I go with the sure thing I have now that has a Rhys Hoskins who gives you half and half, or take the risk for someone that can give you closer to 80% of what you're looking for? Same thing with Nick Castellanos. I know Eugene saying it, or someone saying it, I think it was Eugene, about consistency. Do you go with Nick, who the ups and downs of Nick, but how great he can be when he's fantastic, hitting back-to-back multi-homers? Or do you take a risk and try to trade him for someone else? He finds the back of his
baseball card. Like Nick Castellanos, consistency over the course of 162 games. Yes, there's ups and downs, and there's points where he looks lost up there, but he typically finds the back of his baseball card, and that's what I meant by consistency with him. Schwarber now is a flat-out bargain. If he doesn't have to play defense, to pay $20 million to a guy that's going to lead the league in home runs every year, that's a no-brainer to me. The reason I bring up Castellanos is because I think he actually has some value at 3 years.
He definitely has value.
$60 million. It's not going to get you a ton, but could it get you a high-leverage bullpen arm? Yeah,
and that's the other part of it.
I think it could. So I'm really curious what Dave Dombrowski has in store this offseason. I do think it's going to be very busy. And then the other part of this that's kind of the trickle-down is if Aaron Nola is, in fact, gone, you have to lock up Zach Wheeler for an extension. And that's something, whether it's a 3 or 4 year deal, that's something you want to get done soon. I would think before the new pitching market gets established. You kind of have that luxury now of getting it done early with him because the market isn't yet set. And all you're doing is guaranteeing him more money and, more guaranteed money, being that it's baseball. So, that's another shoe that has to drop in all this.
Well, that's the other part of it. For many of us, it might make more sense to logistically want to move someone like Brandon Marsh or Johan Rojas instead of Nick Castellanos because Nick has a bigger ceiling. But when you're talking about trades, you also have to make sure you're including pieces that will allow you to get the most bang for your buck. So Nick Castellanos, and I know Kim again talking about the emotional connection. Yeah, we might be more emotionally connected to someone like Nick versus, I don't even actually know if it's more than Brandon or Johan. I'm connected to all of them. I don't want to, there's nobody I can definitively say like, bye, I want to see you go, except for Craig Kimbrell. But for Nick Castellanos, he's going to give you more leverage in terms of a trade. Now, I know in the chat, you guys are sharing your thoughts. Keep dropping who you would trade. Whatever you think, you stay by it. Drop it in the chat. I'm just going to read some of the comments. I know that Tim Williamson, you're saying it's the best option. Turn some of Schwarber's solo home runs to 3-run home runs. Yes, I'm assuming you're talking about moving him down. Will, if they trade Casty, I want Hoskins at first and Harper back in the right. Okay. Eugene Krabs is saying trade Schwarbs, Casty, and let go of Rhys and give $700 million to Ohtani. Okay, Eugene Krabs. Hey, say it with your chest, whatever you're feeling. What's up, MJKJ, I think is how you say it. You're saying you need a consistent hitter who will not swing for the fences every at-bat?
And that's
for sure.
That's I think I saw, was it Bob Nightingale last night tweeting about, one of the, it was actually Ruben Amaro Jr. Talking about some of the word coming out of Arizona in the GM meetings that now all of a sudden there's a new trend in baseball that teams are looking for more consistent hitters than they are like, gap and power guys. And it's like, yeah, like no shit. Like why do we have to go through these like hot new trends? Like a guy like, I've seen Gurriel mentioned a couple times as a left fielder. If that was to be an option, I think that means Marsh is definitely gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, like a guy like that, I do think the Phillies have a need for a veteran, consistent hitter. And whoever that may be, we'll kind of dive
I'm
into,
on that hill with you.
We'll dive into the outfielders available later this week. But two very interesting things from Howard Eskin yesterday. And another new interesting thing.
Well, actually, before you move on from that, I just want to point out Sean Melody's comments in the chat because Sean's been asking a couple questions I want us to hit on. Sean was asking about the clubhouse side of things, of how it will impact the team, or if it will impact the team at all, if Aaron Nola and Rhys Hoskins aren't back. Two big, team guys, obviously been here for their career, veterans in that sense. And then also you're saying you felt one reason this team is who they are is for their culture and their camaraderie. And these changes are needed, but the intangibles are hard for you. I agree with that. I'm very big on like a team first aspect. And I've said it on the show many times. And I've always believed this even in my own playing career. It's not always about having the most talented team. It is about having teammates that bring out the best of each other and allow you to play at your highest. I just wonder if right now, if it, for Rhys Hoskins and Aaron Nola specifically, you've run out of that. Like the camaraderie does not outweigh the other side. And so personally, I think it'll hurt in the beginning and it'll be frustrating. And there might be those moments where you realize and remember, oh shoot, I don't have Rhys here or I don't have Aaron here. But I think that by like May or June, the team, as well as many fans, would be more than fine with it and be okay with the fact that you don't have those locker room, clubhouse, team culture type guys that are, the veterans and more of your leaders in that sense, Jamie. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think to a degree, sometimes it gets overblown. I think the reason they love Rhys is because Rhys is the one that would go out and take the media bullets and talk about accountability and always be there consistently. Baseball's a grind in terms of the media. I would hate us. 162
so many games.
162 games plus spring training. They're around you every day. It's just like the whole sport is a grind. So like, guys don't want to talk to the media all the time. So, Rhys was always that guy that would be accountable and go out there. And I think that goes a long way in a locker room. Find a new guy to do that. And that's not to like downplay Rhys and what kind of character he is, because he's a high character guy, but I don't think that rules your day at the end of it. As long as you're not bringing in, like a Trevor Bauer, like somebody cancerous like that.
Yes.
The Phillies have a culture of pretty good guys, and Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber and JT and whoever's left will just keep that torch going on. It's much like, the Eagles, how they have BG and Fletcher Cox and Brandon, or BG, Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelce, Lane Johnson, these old heads that are going to pass it on to the new heads, and the culture just continues to roll. So,
yeah, and guys like Garrett, and if Nick is back, obviously Bryce, like Bryson, they can be those types of team internal voices.
Yeah,
I don't know who's going to be the interview guy, but yes.
Somebody will step up.
Somebody will.
I want to introduce you to our next partner, AG1. It's a daily foundational nutritional supplement that supports whole body health. I drink it now every morning because as a father of 2 young girls, I'm really looking to take care of myself a little bit better. And I gave AG1 a try because of those 2 girls and because it gives my body everything it kind of needs. And it gives me that morning boost with my coffee when I'm making them breakfast. And it makes me feel better. My gut health feels better. My fingernail strength has gotten better. I'm just overall loving AG1 so far. So it is a journey, and it's how I got started with AG1 was I was introduced to it here through ALLCITY. And some of the DNVR guys from out west were like, dude, you got to try it. It'll take you only a couple days to get used to it. Now I'm hooked on it. So that's how I got started it. And I've noticed an overall feeling of health that's better. My stomach just more or less feels better every day. I don't need as much caffeine anymore because I feel like I'm getting kind of like that little bit of energy, sustainable boost from that. And all great athletes have one thing in common. They take care of their bodies, and they're trained by the best in the world and the smartest in the world. And I trust them. And a lot of them also drink AG1. And that's part of the reason I'm a huge fan. With every daily serving, I'm setting myself up for success with 75 high-quality ingredients that give me key daily nutrients and support energy, focus, strength, and clarity. It's a micro habit that delivers macro benefits and helps just about everybody take great care of their health every day. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplemental routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/PHLY Phillies. That's ag1.com/PHLY Phillies and check it out. So welcome aboard, AG1. Happy to have you. I brought him home, and my wife was like, ooh. And she's probably siphoning off from my supply as well. But welcome aboard, AG1. We're happy to have you here at the ALLCITY Sports Network. So a couple rumors yesterday out in Arizona before we get to our bullpen names today, and then our ballpark game, which we're going to fail miserably at, and then some national MLB storylines. But very interesting stuff in Phillies land. We'll be sure to monitor this and hopefully get some guests on that can share more about it. But Aaron Nola, Rhys Hoskins, no Craig Kimbrell most likely next year.
Not a surprise.
No Scott Kingery. So things are, the old guard is changing here. And after 2 failed attempts of being close, that's, I think, very much needed. So the one big rumor was that teams are going to covet players under contract more so than in years past because they don't like the open market money. The first big-name pitcher was linked to a club yesterday as the Red Sox appear hard after Jordan Montgomery. They've already started conversations with his agents out in Arizona. And typically you don't hear of, like a top 10 guy, starting specifically with a team this early. So I wonder if that's an indication that things could heat up a little bit earlier than in years past this year. The GMs are going to be discussing the rule changes that were implemented this year in baseball, i.e. the pitch clock, the base pass, and all that good stuff. And according to an athletic poll, Renee, I think you'll agree, and Tyler will agree as well, the players in the athletic poll believe that the pitch clock should be adjusted for the playoffs. That's something the GMs are going to be discussing this week. I don't think it's needed come playoff time. I think it's fine for the regular season when you're trying to speed up the game. But come playoff time, either lengthen the clock or just eliminate it altogether.
I'm not a big fan of rule changes for the postseason, to be honest. I think if you're going to do something, it just has to be all season because it does give what I can. Okay, so part of my reasoning is in college soccer, for example, they got rid of overtime in the regular season. There's no games that go into overtime for college soccer. And as someone that played college soccer, loved it. And then you go into the postseason, you are allowed to have overtime. And now you have teams getting in the postseason, and because they just haven't done it, they don't know how to go through overtime. I just think if you're going to have a rule, if it's going to be different, it has to be very minor. So it either needs to be, as you mentioned, maybe like a time extension, but I would actually say just keep it. I think part of the thing that makes it challenging with the pitch clock is it's just new. Everybody, when it first was rolled out, there were a lot of question marks. We were unsure. We liked the fact it would speed up the games. What does this actually mean for pitchers? And as we talked about in the show, and Tyler Zulli pointed out specifically, probably a big part of as to why around the league ERA was not great this year, and the numbers definitely increased. But I think with time and getting used to it, that the pitch clock will absolutely be something that's not as big of a deal that we're talking about. So I say keep it for the postseason. I don't like changing it up.
Tyler, Renee's in. Where do you fall on the playoff specific pitch clock?
I understand that this is probably a bias because of who the situation allowed it to or who the situation was and the magnitude of the situation for the city.
Let's do Craig Kimbrell.
You would become Voldemort. We don't say his name.
Not Craig
We don't mention that.
I'm going back a year prior. You would never get the Robert Suarez, Bryce Harper in the rain stare down pitcher matchup right before he hits the home run in the NLCS with the pitch clock, because there would have been violations on Bryce Harper. He would have been started to count 0-1. It would have changed the entire landscape of the at bat. I'm all for it in the landscape of the regular season. It should not partake in postseason baseball.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's just too much.
Well, I know Sean Melody's saying playoff games at 8 p.m., for example, are long enough. Keep the pitch clock. MBDBDBF saying, love the pitch clock. Great idea.
10 seconds.
Sean is saying, and just get rid of the ghost runner. Nope. I know you're a huge.
Well, luckily they do in playoff. Yeah, but I'm with you in the regular season.
For the regular season, for
just
sure.
Get rid of it. You don't need both.
I think the games, the timing of the games actually is a good point. I didn't think about that part of it. I mean, those 8 o'clock games, it's so late already. The pitch clock having the game extended. While I do love those iconic moments, Tyler, I also love moments where you're going to be out of the game within 2 hours, 2.5 hours, versus it possibly extending because of the pitch clock not existing.
So that's interesting. One of the other rumors, and by the way, just addressing Trevor Bauer in the chat. Trevor Bauer's been a JO long before the sexual assault claims. So yeah, he might have cleared his name. There's still a lot up in the air about that. He countersued, so stuff would be public. Before all that, and just wipe that stuff aside, which you can't even do. He was a JO before that, and he was a hothead before that. Just not worth bringing into your locker room. Like, end of story. The guy's going to be blacklisted from baseball almost in a way. So just nah.
And
I'm good.
As a female myself, I will absolutely say, and I have no problem saying, if anybody's been accused of sexual assault for one person, let alone, a fourth woman or a settled dispute, I don't care what happens in the courts. If you are someone that is sexually assaulting women, putting your hands on them, being violent in any way, any sort of abuse, don't want you here. I don't care how talented you are. You can be, God's gift to earth, superhuman. I don't care, because sports should not trump the fact that you are a terrible person and someone that has been doing criminal activity. So y'all can say it's cleared and we don't care and whatever. I care, always will care. And I don't care if it's been 10 years or 20 years or 50 years. If you have done something like that, there is not a place for you on any team that I will ever support.
Yeah,
racism, discrimination, homophobic comments. I don't care if it's verbal, physical, whatever. Don't want you here. So no.
Yeah, so that's a big no from all of us here on Trevor Bauer.
No.
You can take chances
elsewhere.
What the hell no? People. One of the other rumors coming out was that the Los Angeles Dodgers, and one of the reasons they did not offer JD Martinez a qualifying offer, and I do think this is where Ohtani's going to end up, unfortunately, is because they want to stay liquid and flexible for Shohei Ohtani. I really wish he would stay in the AL. I much prefer that. Now, he can't pitch this year because of the Tommy John, but he should be able to play in the field. I can't wait to see what that contract is. It's probably going to be north of $500 million, which is absolutely wild to become a half a billionaire in one signature. But good for him. Unfortunately, he's going to go to the Dodgers. But the Dodgers are kind of weird in that they seem to get like all these great players and it doesn't matter. So, obviously you don't want to see Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman get Shohei Ohtani in that lineup, because that's about as nasty of 3 hitters as you could possibly put together in all of baseball. We'll see if it works for the Dodgers, but I think that's an early indication that the Dodgers are all in for Ohtani, and he's probably going to end up playing for the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah. And just really quickly, Dave, I do want to address your comments. I cannot stand the fact that there are people that will falsely accuse someone for a check, because it does mess up for actual victims that they don't feel they can come forward because they're going to be accused of lying and seeking just, a settlement. So no, I'm not siding with the woman either. But as Jamie pointed out, and as history has shown, it's not a one-time issue that we've seen Trevor Bauer in the mix.
I don't want him in this locker room.
It's very simple.
Stuff.
Like that incident does not help because obviously it's controversial and don't know fully all the details enough to know. But I do know enough from overall big picture of Trevor Bauer that he's not someone that I'd want with the Phillies, period. But to your point about the rumors, Jamie, there have been a lot. It seems like there's a change. And as you mentioned, I think it's for the better that we're seeing more aggressive conversations about making deals early. I know the Yankees manager, Brian Cashman, already was telling reporters, specifically, we coming very straightforward about it. We're looking for 2 outfielders for San Francisco for the Giants. They also have been very transparent of like, this is exactly what we're looking for, hoping to improve.
The rumor is that Giants are going to go after Cody Bellinger.
Exactly. Yeah. So I like that they're coming right out with it and being able to be comfortable. The Marlins did the same thing. Came right out and said also, we're adding some contact to our lineup. They're talking about their needs openly. Because why not? Why keep this stuff in the dark? We know what you need. We all have seen that you guys play. Everybody can look at each team and point out some areas that they're looking to, make some offseason changes. So I like that they're being a little bit more transparent. And while we understand there's a business side to it, that I think actually helps the business side. If you're coming out saying you're the president of baseball operations, here's what we're looking for, here's what we want. The Angels, the rumors about Shohei Ohtani's been very public in that sense. So keep it coming. It makes it more fun for us to have something to talk about. But now it also allows us to see, okay, if this is what they're looking for, who are they going to bring in to actually fit that? So,
all right. So speaking of that, let's move on to our bullpen guys. Now the bullpen is going to get, an added, couple arms here. We'll see what happens. But you are going to have Sir Anthony. You're going to have Alvarado. Mm-hmm. You're going to have Hoffman back. You're going to have Soto back. You're going to have Orion back. You're still going to have those guys in the system like Brogdon. The guy they just brought in from the Rays yesterday is pretty much out of minor league options. So if he makes the team, he's already on the 40-man. There's 2 open spots remaining on the 40-man roster. So you can't send, and I don't have his name in front of me, but you can't send him back down to the minor. So he's going to have a chance to make the bullpen in spring training. And if he doesn't, he's just going to be straight up cut. So there are going to be a couple names added to the bullpen. Now, obviously, the big one on the market is Josh Hader. Dave Dombrowski mentioned him at the end of year press conference when he was asked about the bullpen, and he said, I agree that, big name closers are great, but there's so few of them in the game. And he mentioned Hader by example. Now, MBD, if you're in the chat, I would love for you to say why you don't exactly like Josh Hader.
He's a hater.
No, so I'm not signing Hader if they sign a Nola or Yamamoto or, one of these bigger name players. I think the Hader thing is pretty unrealistic, 1. So let me preface it with that. But 2, if you strike out on those starting pitching options, then I think he becomes a viable option. Yeah. So he's projected in the 6-year, $110 million contract kind of realm. Here he is last year for the Padres. The left-hander appeared in 56 innings and 61 appearances. He went 2-3 with a 1.28 ERA, 85 Ks, and a 1.1 WHIP. He's a 5-time All-Star, sub-1 career WHIP, which is spectacular. And 15 Ks per 9, which is also really good. Here is 5 years, $88 million. Another one I saw was 6 years, $110. So you're probably somewhere in that 5 to 6, floating around $100 million range. Biggest name on the market by far. I don't think that anybody else is really close. Dombrowski said they think they have some arms in-house that can fill that closer role. I thought it was interesting. He said, you don't really need that big name closer. The Josh Haders of the world aren't around that often. Mm-hmm. Well, one's around. Do you take a shot on him? I don't think they do, but I'm certainly intrigued by it.
Yeah. Also, I know in the chat, Eugene Krabs was mentioning, I don't want to overlook this. I know you touched on it briefly, but adding Fleming, The Phillies on Monday did go through with acquiring left-hander Josh Fleming, right-hander Michael Mercado from the Rays, 2 separate transactions.
Yeah, Fleming's the one without minor league options.
Yeah, so they claimed Fleming off of waivers. They got Mercado for AA right-hander Adam Leverett and cash considerations. And, the numbers they've had are decent. But they're, for Mercado specifically, looking to make that major league debut. But overall, Fleming at 27, 2-0 with a 4.70 ERA and 12 appearances with the Rays, 25 strikeouts, 19 walks in 51 2/3 innings. Good sinker breaking ball combo. And Mercado on the other side, 24, also young, 4.79 ERA and 52 appearances last season with AA Montgomery and AAA Durham, and struck out 95, walked 35 in 62 innings with a fastball that can average 95.7. So 2 small changes that we've seen. I don't know what you guys think about them, if you're encouraged by them at all. I mean, hey, we talked about going out and getting bullpen arms. Able to bring in a couple of guys, but of course, for the Phillies specifically, someone like Hader is definitely a guy that you're looking to also add. I mean, it's not done. The Phillies are going to be looking to add more, because especially if Aaron Nola is unable to, you're unable to re-sign Aaron Nola, you're now looking to bring in, if not a big name starting pitcher, at least, a guy that can be a 4 or 5 starting pitcher in the rotation, but then also some more bullpen arms to fill in. So I know MBDBDBF, you're saying Hader wouldn't take the ball for a 4-out save with the Padres postseason on the line. Hey, I think that he's got, oh, wow, Eugene Krabs, you read my mind. I was going to say, I think he's got to be better than Kimbrel at least. And I think, for Hader, he's someone that I'd be very comfortable with in a Phillies uniform.
Yeah, I just don't think he's going to happen if you sign, one of these true number 2 type pitchers. So something to keep an eye on. The other names on my list that we can run through here, and then we'll get to your guys real quick. I don't hate Hector Neris. I think he had a pretty good year last year down in Houston. He's been solid. He's consistent. His projected market value is like a 2-year deal for $15 million. There's his stats that Tyler made for you last year. Some pretty decent numbers for Hector. His hard hit number percentage and his exit velocity both went down last year. He moved into a setup role the last 2 years. And yeah, if you brought him in, that's what he would be. You'd have Sir Anthony and him, and maybe Orion if he, exceeds next year, maybe Hoffman. So all of a sudden you'd have like 3 or 4 high leverage kind of setup guys, with the possibility of Alvarado being the closer, I would assume. But all of a sudden that would become a strength. So I don't hate the idea of Hector Neris at all. Now, Liam Hendriks is a guy we talked about yesterday briefly from the White Sox. He kicked Hodgkin's lymphoma's ass this year. Didn't have his best year by any means, but who the hell does after you kick cancer's ass? But he is somebody that intrigues me, definitely. All I'm really looking for is one more guy that could potentially close for you, kind of be that setup, high leverage guy. He only had 5 appearances last year. Numbers not great at all, but he did have that 1.04 whip. He has pedigree. The White Sox declined his number. I think he's a guy that interests me. Some of his market projections are 2 years and $12 million. So again, another one of those like $6 million guys. There isn't a high risk involved with that. You kind of have a good enough foundation in your bullpen where adding somebody like that to the mix is very intriguing to me. Now, the wild card I have is Jordan Hicks. St. Louis Cardinals he came up with. He was a guy that throws absolute gas. He's been clocked as high as 105 miles an hour on the gun. Consistently throws around 100. He got traded to the Blue Jays last year and actually improved when he got to the Toronto Blue Jays. He's a guy I would love to see. Now, Tyler had a great line before the show. I want to bring him in because I just want all the guys that can throw 100 miles an hour. And Tyler called him, yeah, if you want to build a bullpen of the Monstars of guys who throw hard, then sure, bring Jordan Hicks in, because you add him to Orion and Hoffman and Alvarado and Sir Anthony, and all of a sudden you have like 6 guys that can throw 100+ miles an hour in a bullpen. That is pretty intriguing. And then the final guy, I've never seen pitch before, but I don't care. I want to get outside the box here, and I'll go back to Japan again with Yaki Matsui. He's a 28-year-old left-handed bullpen pitcher out of Japan. He's been one of the best relief pitchers over in Japan over the past couple years. He's tallied 30+ saves on 6 different occasions. He had 39 saves this past year, a 1.57 ERA over 57 and a third innings, 3 straight years with a sub-2 ERA. He struck out 32.5% of all hitters while walking just 6% of batters faced. So those are kind of some of the guys I'd love to see them sign. I've never seen Matsui pitch, but what the hell? Let's gamble. So Renee, who are some guys that you wouldn't mind seeing in the bullpen in additions here in the early offseason?
Yeah, I think, for me, it's some complimentary guys. I think someone like, Josh Hader or Neris are ones that they'd be great, strong additions of knowing what they're going to get. And there's some other names out there that, in my opinion, are good other just complimentary pieces that we're just expecting to give you some strong innings, get in, get out. So I know a couple of options that I was looking at. Someone like Lucas Giolito, he was someone that at one point was a top target during the trade deadline. Didn't have a great move after that, but was 1 for 5 with a 6.89 ERA and 6 starts with the Angels. Had a season ending. The season ended terribly for him. But hey, if you're looking for a complimentary guy that maybe you can bring in and Caleb Cotham can work with and turn some things around, I don't know. Giolito is at 29 years old, someone that not a high first option, but could be. If you can get him for just an innings eater, possibly, and a low price, for sure. I know also there's someone like Yariel Rodriguez, who had been a starter at one point, now more in a reliever role, has played internationally. I know we're talking about the growth of the game and on the Japanese side, but as well, he played in Cuba for a number of years and had a 1.15 ERA, 27.5% strikeout rate, and 56 appearances in Chunichi in 2022. And someone that's just solid. I'm not looking at anything big. I'm looking for who can I get for a cheap price that can, eat some innings and just be there. And then someone else that I think is like another iffy one is maybe like a Marcus Stroman, who I saw is available now. Stroman did have a 2.96 ERA and a 9.6 record in the first start of the season, but was inconsistent in the second half. That's why I think these are guys that are not my heavy hitters, but if you're looking to just add 1 or 2 more pieces, see if you can get a little potential out of them to be able to eat some innings for a low price. Hey, if you've got some money out there, maybe try them out. I was trying to go with some people that are a little different from your list because I think once we get down the stretch, it's a little tough. There's not a lot of great pickings. It's like you got to find what pieces can work well. So, yeah, I know it's scary, but there's not a lot of great options out there outside of our top options for bullpen arms. But I would say maybe some of these guys can get for a cheap price, a nice discounted rate, and eat some innings for you. Who knows?
What do you got, Tyler?
Yeah, so I know the comment section was just roasting the ineptitude of the Padres clubhouse. So I'm going to apologize for going back there. I promise you I'm not going the Josh Hader route, though. But I really there's 2 guys.
Are you opposed to Hader?
I'm opposed to Hader the human being. I mean, like I understand.
Is he a POS?
Oh, he's a scumbag. He's,
okay.
That's why MBD doesn't like him either.
Yeah, he's an absolute dirtball.
Oh, I didn't know the scumbagness of it.
With racist tweets in his past.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Multiple tweets with multiple usage of racial slurs.
On Josh Hader.
I didn't know his tweets. I didn't know it was that bad, but bad. I knew I'd heard some rumors.
Yeah, it's
don't want him then.
It's not great. I mean, if you guys were talking earlier about the camaraderie and the culture of this clubhouse, he don't fit. He don't fit at all.
No, I think he's at most like a 2% chance of them signing.
But
he can throw a baseball.
The guy that I'm looking at, I've actually there's 2 guys, and one I didn't realize this guy was a free agent. The other one was Robert Suarez, who we were talking about how the Padres are poor and they need to start probably moving some assets. Robert Suarez would be a guy that I would consider, but Nick Martinez is a guy that I think it gives you optionality. It gives you like what Matt Strahm gave you from the right side. He can start. He can come out of the bullpen. He was really good in the postseason last year, and this year he started the year as a starter, kind of reverted back to a reliever role as the season went on. The Padres had to pick up. They had, how when players have options, like Liam Hendriks got his player option declined or his team option declined. The Padres had to make a decision mutually on 2 consecutive years of options for Nick Martinez. Jeez. They had to decide on 24 and 25, and they declined it. He also had a player option that he opted out of. I wouldn't be surprised to see Nick Martinez get low-end starter money because he does have that capability to do it. But if he's willing to take a kind of a swing Matt Strahm type role, not in the same, I don't know if he's going to have the same success, but in that kind of similar style where maybe you need him to start in the beginning of the year and he can kind of phase back into the bullpen where I think he's probably a little bit stronger. Martinez would be a guy that I'd be really interested in.
Yeah, they like those versatility guys, especially somebody that can give you middle relief if needed to start. You know, if Christopher Sanchez or somebody gets hurt like that. So yeah, it's an interesting name for sure.
And then the other one is we talked about his brother because he was part of that trade package that brought Gregory Soto to Philadelphia. Is Phil Maton from the Houston Astros. Spent the last couple of years with Houston. Market value is just 1 year and $4 million for a guy that's posted a 3.3 and a 3.6 over the last 2 seasons. I'm not expecting him to be a stud by any means in the high leverage back end of the bullpen. He's getting a little bit older, but if you're looking for guys who know how to get outs and have gotten outs in big situations, Phil Maton's a guy that interests me.
I'm interested in anybody from the Astros. They just seem to develop pitchers really well. And you know what else can develop your ass in some seats at your favorite events? That's the GameTime app.
The same transition or similar transition.
Get your ass in whatever seat you want with the GameTime app and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. I told you about how I just used them last weekend. Unfortunately, the 2 young girls don't let me get to every event I want to go to. But I am a GameTime devotee from now on because it was so simple, so easy, and I got those awesome seat views. I knew exactly what we were in store for. I knew our seats. You know, as I walked in, I went, "Oh, we're right over there. Let's go to the bar." So you know, it was just so easy. They have killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee. You can stop stressing over tickets and start getting hyped for all the fun you're gonna have. They have flash deals, last-minute tickets, easy to find and buy, seats, views, images right there in the app. It's the place for last-minute tickets. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds. 2 taps and you're set. Tickets are sent directly to your phone so you don't have to dig through your email. So snag the tickets without the stress. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download the GameTime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Yeah, when you buy those tickets, you want to make sure you look good sitting in the stands. You want to make sure you're rocking some apparel. I know somebody was asking about your hoodie. Well, there's a great spot to buy some merch and hoodies. That's over at FOCO. And FOCO is the place to be able to buy bobbleheads, toys, collectibles, shirts, hats, shoes. They've got slippers. They've got so many different types of team merchandise you can buy. And you can use the code that is on your screen for those of you that are watching us live using code PHLY to get 10% off. Again, for those listening on our podcast platforms, PHLY gets you 10% off at FOCO. They allow you to have the latest, the greatest, and really cool merchandise to be able to rock in your house, out at the games, out at concerts, when you're tailgating, wherever you are at, using FOCO and that code PHLY for 10% off.
Awesome. Spiral Out said he got his tool ticks through GameTime.
That.
Thank you, Spiral Out, for supporting our good cause here. And thanks to everybody for hanging out with us today. An awesome time. All right, let's get to Guess That Ballpark before we do the, I guess, kind of national news around baseball. This poses to be a lot harder than I anticipated. I originally thought I might be able to get between 10 and 12 stadiums. I'll be lucky if I get 5. So this is the evil, torturous idea of our social media maven, Chris. So let's see the torture chamber today, Tyler. Now, me and Renee don't know these, have never seen these.
Nope.
Tyler knows the answer. You in the chat, please guess along with
Help us. Ayúdame. Yesterday, we did have Busch Stadium, which was tough. This one is just as tough. See, my problem is I always look at the outline, and I'm seeing all types of objects.
I'm going Astros. I feel fairly confident.
Okay.
Maybe. I don't know. I'm actually terrified because
actually no confidence whatsoever.
Actually, I have no confidence. But I'm going to go with Minute Maid Park.
Okay.
Final answer. And if I'm wrong here, I might not get one right throughout the course of this game. So Minute Maid Park, final answer.
Please make sure you guys hit the like button and subscribe as I stall because I have no idea. Neil is saying Fenway.
Fenway doesn't.
I don't think
no, they do have that.
That back triangle.
He's right. They do have that little cutout.
I don't know though. There's a lot of different answers. It's not the Diamondbacks. Detroit Cubs.
Oh, shit.
Guys, I don't know. I'm really bad at this game.
I'm
and
going
I
to
have
stick
no
with
problem.
Minute Maid. I'm going to stick with Minute Maid. Now, Wrigley's uniformed wall, but Fenway does have that little cutout
I don't know the outfield.
Oh.
Okay, I was going to go
but
with.
But Fenway's right field is shorter. I think that would be a more diagonal line inward than outward. I'm sticking with Minute Maid. I don't know. I'm screwed.
I'm going to go with
hard.
Cleveland, actually.
All right, so Renee, you're going Cleveland. Jamie, you're going Minute Maid. I will tell you today.
I feel like we should get hits.
Someone in the chat is
the
right.
answer is correct in the chat.
Yes,
there is a correct
Fenway,
answer in the chat.
It's Fenway.
It's Fenway?
I think it's going to be Fenway.
Wow, yeah. Good job, guys.
Damn it.
You guys are so good at this.
I might not get one right. I thought, I'd have a shot here.
You're so good at this.
After blowing Fenway, I think I'm screwed.
It's always the outfield for me. I'm like, I don't know. You don't always.
Good job to everybody in the chat that got it.
We salute you.
Just a fun little game to play along with. If you're listening on the podcast, you can find that on our social media platforms.
Yes, we will be sharing it.
PHLY_Phillies. You can follow us at PHLY_sports on Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff. I think we even have some TikTok teens doing some stuff for us, so we exist there. So follow us on all the social media platforms for sure.
Shout out to Neil. Boom, absolutely did a great job in Mopar.
Good job, Christy.
We were definitely Zullied. I know Christy, Neil, a couple of you guys.
Eugene Krabs.
We're saying Fenway, so shout out to you for that. We will definitely have more of these coming.
I thought Fenway was one of the 5 I was going to get.
I know, and that's what you were saying, and then lo and behold, there it was. So already we've had Busch Stadium, we've had Fenway. I'm gonna keep track of these because it's gonna help. I feel like down the stretch, maybe, who knows? But you know what else can help you in a big way? That's Hero Bread, because you want to make sure you're eating delicious, tasty options that allow you to have great sandwiches, wraps, tortillas, rolls, whatever it is, especially as we're gearing up for the holiday season and you guys are looking to put together for that Thanksgiving meal or Christmas or Kwanzaa or Hanukkah meals, whatever it is you guys are doing, that you guys are able to be able to have some healthy options. Now, Hero Bread, what I like about them is they took time to really test things out, to find bread options that, regardless of your dietary restrictions, health issues, anything else that you're looking to, make sure you're paying attention to, Hero Bread is the place that will always be able to accommodate you with bread that across the board is good for you. Soft, fluffy, delicious, high fiber, ultra low net carbs, that 0 gram sugar per slice, and you can use the code PHLY at Hero Bread to get 10% off. It is hero.co. So not .com, .co, because they're unique and special and they don't even need an M on the end of their URL. Hero.co, use that code PHLY, get 10% off of their delicious options. I've tried it. I've had it. You can too. Fewer calories than the leading national brands and 5 to 10 grams protein per serving. Hero Bread. Got you covered, guys.
Nice. Before we get
to a quick point, though, for Dave, no, I will not be there this weekend. Apologies. I rarely can get to LaSalle homecoming or any of my school's homecomings for that matter. But I will be here doing a Sixers show, actually, on Sunday. So
nice.
Yeah.
And I actually get the weekend off because the Eagles have a bye. So that's that's pretty cool. Yes, MBD, I guess I got swayed off of Hater because of his J-O-ness. That's fine.
Well, that I didn't even know about. No, it was that bad. But once I hear that, say less. I try to really follow just the athlete in terms of who they are in the game. But if you're out there doing personal things like making racist tweets, like I said before, this is not the spot for you.
So before we get out of here today, just want to run through some of the national news around Major League Baseball outside of the rumor mill that's been happening. The NL Manager of the Year candidates were revealed. It's Snedeker from the Braves, which we'll talk about in a second. Craig Counsell from the Brewers, which, again, we'll talk about in a second. And Schumacher from the Marlins. Now, Snedeker, you won like 105 games. He kind of had a ready-made lineup. And you kind of have like one of the best farm systems in baseball feeding your major league roster. Is he really deserving? I think Torey Lovullo got kind of jobbed on this. I know it was only an 84-win regular season team and the playoffs. I think the voting happens before the playoffs even happen. So when you look at it through that context, maybe not like robbed, but Brent Snedeker, I mean, come on. I think me, you, and Tyler could manage the Braves to 100 wins.
Yeah, but it's a regular season award. So if you're looking at the regular season that they had,
the expectation is you win.
But
and he did that.
I mean, a big part of being considered manager of the year is that your team wins a lot of games.
Screw him.
So unfortunately, the winning and the success absolutely is what's going to always put. It's always the top regular season records that coaches end up being in that kind of.
What did he do for the
Unless
Braves?
you have a huge, you're still salty. Unless you have a huge turnaround where you go from being like a losing team to a top team.
Well, that's what Torey Lovullo's done.
Exactly.
He took over like a 67 win team. And 2 years has him, going to the World Series.
Yeah, I mean,
Snedeker, screw you. Counsell, he's a turncoat. I think Schumacher actually probably deserves it to have the Marlins as competitive as they were this year. So we'll see who wins that in the coming days. The Braves picked up the option on Charlie Morton in some NL East news. They declined an option on Eddie Rosario, the former World Series. Was he co-MVP or just straight up MVP?
I think it was just MVP.
It was just MVP. Maybe it was NLCS, whatever it was. The Braves declined his option. In other NL East news, the Mets hire Yankees bench coach, who also the same name as the comedian, right? Carlos Mendoza. Wasn't that a comedian? Who am I thinking of?
Carlos
Mencia.
Mencia.
I was going to say, I don't know Mendoza.
Mendoza was the serial killer?
The Mendoza brothers?
The brothers?
Yeah.
The
They're the killers.
Brothers.
That's I'm like, I don't know.
Famous
I know of something famous, but not for being funny, for being murderers.
So he spent 15 years across town with the Yankees. He was Aaron Boone's top bench coach, and the Mets hire him after missing out on Craig Counsell, who is a Milwaukee area kid, coached the Brewers for the last 10 years. I saw Jason Stark or Buster Olney, one of them, right?
Oh, Menendez brothers.
The Menendez brother, not
but they
Mendoza.
were from that. They were from that same area.
Yeah,
they're in the New Jersey, New York area.
According to GMs and executives around baseball, Craig Counsell is constantly mentioned as a top 3 to 5 manager. The Brewers lose him, to much of the surprise of Brewers fans and probably team and executives, to their rival, the Chicago Cubs, who give him a huge 5-year, $40 million deal, which kind of bucks the trend in baseball for baseball managers getting underpaid. It was such a surprise to the Milwaukee Brewers that Brewers owner Mark Atanzio said, "Are you messing with me?" when Craig Counsell first gave him the news. So that was the big shockwave through Major League Baseball this week, that Craig Counsell, who Tyler, I believe, thinks is overrated, if I'm not mistaken. Flees
No,
the Brewers.
I think the Brewers were overrated. I think Craig Counsell's a decent enough manager.
You think he can save the Cubs?
No.
I think the Cubs are on the doorstep of being good.
Yeah, they do, and they have a.
They got a.
I was looking at prospects the other day. They have like 4 or 5 of the top 25 kids.
I've become a huge Pete Crow Armstrong fan. I think he's going to be really good in Major League Baseball. They've got a good list of arms too. I think that they're knocking on the doorstep of being good, even if Cody Bellinger doesn't come back.
Yeah.
Well, I do like that Craig Counsell had some emotional things because he grew up a Brewers fan.
Yeah, he grew up in the area.
And so, he was very emotional that he was like, I was happy, I was crying, I was laughing, I went through all of it. It makes for a really full day. There was a lot yesterday. I mean, we enjoyed those emotional sides. I know we were talking about in the chat earlier of just how, it's not an easy decision. This is home, and now you're going somewhere completely different from Milwaukee of all places. That's a huge difference. Going to Chi-Town. So
other little bit of news: AL MVP finalists Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, and Shohei Ohtani are the 3 AL finalists. Big money for the Rangers spent on those 2 in the middle of the infield. I would say that worked out for them with a World Series title and both considered MVP finalists. And then the NL, again, 2 teammates and somebody in our division, Ronald Acuna Jr., Freddie Freeman, and Mookie Betts are the 3 NL MVP finalists. I would imagine it's going to Ohtani and Acuna, but damn, you can make a pretty strong case for Mookie Betts to take the NL one as well. So we'll see what happens there.
Definitely on the Acuna, I would expect. If it doesn't go to Acuna, I'd be very surprised.
Yeah, and then final 2 little nuggets. The Marlins did something smart. I hate that. They hired the Rays GM Peter Pendex to run baseball operations. Now, just working for the Rays doesn't mean you're going to be good, but they seem to get the most out of the least. So I always think a Rays hire is pretty good. So the Marlins moved on there, and our old friend Matt Klentak gets promoted within the Brewers organization. He was an assistant to the GM. Now he's an executive advisor to the GM. So Matt Klentak moving on up with the Milwaukee Brewers. So that wraps it up for us here today. For Tyler Zulli, Renee Washington, Jamie Lynch, we'll be back tomorrow, I believe at 12:30, if I'm not mistaken off the top of my head.
Yeah, we are back at 12:30 tomorrow.
12:30 tomorrow. And we'll be talking about either some infielders or outfielders. We'll figure that out in the post-show meeting today. But we'll talk about some targets and free agency there for the team. And, what a potential departure of Rhys Hoskins and Aaron Nola looks like. Do you move on from a Brandon Marsh? Do you move on from a Rojas? Or
so many questions.
The outfield, I think, is a really interesting discussion. Infield, you're just talking about adding versatility and depth, more or less. So we will continue those conversations this week as the MLB offseason picks up and is underway. For everybody here at the PHLY Phillies podcast, thanks for hanging out with us today. Make sure you're hitting that like, subscribe button. Check out the podcast. We love you all. We appreciate your time, and we'll see you tomorrow.
We all silly like the mayor.